This video uses real photographs from the Soviet era, stylized as sketches to avoid potential copyright issues and overly graphic details. People who feel nostalgic about the USSR often mention that there was supposedly an atmosphere of trust and friendship between people, along with the state genuinely caring for its citizens. If you take their word for it, human relationships in the Soviet Union were so wonderful that it sounded like paradise on earth. You'd think that in the toughest moments of life, like giving birth, this incredible kindness and support would shine even brighter. After all, if everyday Soviet people treated each other with almost superhuman warmth and goodwill, you can only imagine how tenderly the medical staff would care for women in labor, how they'd protect them, encourage them, and help them through the pain. However, many people's memories paint a very different picture. Don't get me wrong, experiences varied. In major cities with first-tier status, supplies were usually better, oversight was stricter, and hospitals were often decent. Plenty of women surely remember their births positively. But what follows isn't some made-up horror story. These were ordinary, everyday realities that a large number of women faced. At the time, most didn't even see it as particularly horrific. It was just the normal state of things in a country where, even decades after the war, many hospitals still felt like field hospitals. First, let's look at generalized information from open sources and recollections of medical workers themselves. In mid-20th century medical guidelines, pain relief during childbirth had strict requirements. It shouldn't weaken contractions, prolong labor, or harm the mother or baby. The tools available to doctors were primitive. Early options included chloral hydrate, now used mainly as an anticonvulsant, and paraldehyde, a sedative, sometimes given as an enema mixed with raspberry syrup. Later came suppositories with antipyrin, now banned for pregnant women, nursing mothers, and children. Injections of magnesium sulfate into the abdomen and perineum, Novocaine solutions, and Promadol. Despite numerous Soviet scientific papers on obstetric anesthesia, in practice women rarely received any pain relief. It was believed that if labor wasn't extremely painful, psychological preparation was enough, and medications were in short supply anyway. When pain relief was provided, for a long time it was handled by the obstetricians themselves. Great if the doctor was experienced, not so great if they weren't. In those years, the dominant philosophy, mostly pushed by men, was that women should give birth in suffering. But that's wrong. Not just because excruciating pain is torture, but because it doesn't help a healthy delivery, says Irina Bushtareva, obstetrician-gynecologist, professor, doctor of medical sciences, and honored doctor of Russia. The painkillers we used were basically narcotics. They gave short, incomplete relief while harming both mother and baby. Labor often became pathological. Babies were born with drug-induced depression, their breathing center suppressed, requiring resuscitation that often wasn't available. The only resuscitation team covering difficult births shuttled between maternity hospitals on a fixed route. Yet even in the smoothest cases, something could go wrong suddenly. For example, heavy blood loss. To save the woman, a donor had to be found quickly. Direct blood transfusions were still allowed back then. They'd put out a call to the nearest military unit or announce it over the loudspeaker at a movie theater. That's how we managed. There were no anesthesiologists, resuscitators, or especially neonatologists permanently stationed in the delivery room. Early in my career I fought for that, argued with officials that all these specialists needed to be right there with the mother. I succeeded, but much later. The second big problem was staff rudeness. In Soviet times, one doctor on duty might handle 10 to 12 deliveries in a single shift. It was an assembly line, never enough hands. Doctors from antenatal clinics were forcibly volunteered for night shifts without pay. Naturally, they were unhappy, and most lacked real obstetric experience, so they couldn't help in emergencies. Irritated nurses might slap a woman's legs if she did something wrong, and yelling was completely routine. Now let's turn to memories from the women who gave birth and their relatives. What follows may sound like deliberate exaggeration, but these are real accounts from actual people, collected from various Russian-language corners of the internet. I've only translated them. They were often comments under articles or blog posts on the topic, frequently in response to glowing pieces praising Soviet medicine, with outraged readers sharing their stories as counter-evidence. Sometimes they came from direct requests by bloggers asking for personal experiences. I want to stress that these are the cases where people were less lucky. Many women had more positive experiences. Still, negative stories like these were far from rare. Number 1. You weren't allowed to have any of your own clothes, not even underwear. Just a hideous hospital gown that tied in the back and disgusting slippers. That's what we, the great unwashed masses, got. The patient was guilty by default, for wasting the doctors' and nurses' precious time they could have spent more usefully. Plus you were stealing from the state and taking up a bed. A woman in labor was even more guilty, first for getting pregnant in the first place, second for screaming and disturbing staff, third for being spoiled. Real women just endure it. If you weren't married, it was over. They'd talk to you like you were a drunk homeless person. No outside food or care packages allowed. You might eat something bad and get sick. Number 2. We had total no underwear too, plus washed out, sometimes torn hospital shirts and gowns. Nothing from home, not even underwear, and other personal items were discouraged. I think the slippers were hospital issue too. Visits from family were banned, of course. All the new dads hung around under the windows yelling up to their wives. One payphone per floor and huge lines to use it. Number 3. Doctors at the antenatal clinic treated you with hatred. In the maternity hospital it was just cold and indifferent. We see plenty like you. Number 4. Winter 1984. Leningrad, Pediatric Institute. Attitude was awful, everyone spoke down to you, everyone was too busy. It was freezing, -25 outside. No hot water, relatives weren't allowed to pass in an immersion heater. My mom snuck one in hidden in a sugar packet, the whole ward used it secretly. 12 women in the room. No bathtub, toilet barely functional. Still scary to remember. Number 5. 1989, Yaroslavl. A woman in painful labor vomited in the ward. The orderly shoved a rag in her face and yelled, "Clean up after yourself." 1990, Petersburg. A drunk nurse tipped over a cart of newborns in front of shocked onlookers. Number 6. There was a bottle of potassium permanganate in the toilet, that felt like luxury. No pads, instead they gave us washed cloth diapers, and we had extras because you got fewer than you needed each day. Begging a nurse for one more felt like winning the lottery. Sorry for the details. And the attitude matched. I was actually in a good maternity hospital, got in through connections. They even let me keep a book. Number 7. From my mother-in-law's memories, at night the doctors went home, and to avoid hassle they'd give incoming women sleeping pills so labor would wait until morning. One woman fell asleep and started giving birth without waking up. Number 8. Our first child died because the doctors didn't come. My wife was screaming, and they'd come by and say, "It's nothing, first birth, no big deal. Just endure it, stop yelling." When they finally panicked, it was too late. He was stillborn, intrauterine asphyxia. Then, after my exhausted, crying wife finally fell asleep, a nurse woke her up. The baby needed a name for the paperwork. A dead baby. They woke her for that. Even now it makes my stomach turn. 1975, Sverdlovsk. Number 9. Toilet and shower in the same room, overflowing buckets of bloody cloths spilling onto the floor. Steam from the shower raised such a stench. The shower was separated from the toilets by just a plastic curtain. This was Moscow, Maternity Hospital number 32. 1989. Number 10. My mother gave birth to my sister in 1975, Moscow. I'll never forget her story. First they stripped her naked and shaved her with a rusty razor. No sheets on the beds, just oilcloth. No food for 24 hours, she begged an orderly for sugar from the abortion ward because she was afraid she wouldn't have strength left. Labored 12 hours. The doctor checked twice. The doctors and orderlies there were like specially selected, like concentration camp guards, just sadists. Nothing in my life was scarier, I felt like a dog in the Middle Ages, she said. Number 11. Mom gave birth to my younger brother in 1972. She still calls it Gestapo-level torture. Went in early with complications, high blood pressure. Staff, including doctors, yelled constantly. The refrain, "When are you finally going to give birth? You'll go blind. Your pressure's so high your eyes will burst." Psychological abuse and rudeness. Zero qualified help, or any help. Mom is convinced that without Grandma, her mother, she'd have died there, along with the baby. Number 12. I don't want to go into my full story. Much of it's already here: scorched cloth diapers instead of pads, no underwear allowed. I was shocked when admitted for observation. They shaved everything with a communal razor, and the way they did it, I was 18, cried for a long time. On bed rest they forbade walking outside, scared us into staying inside. Number 13. Gave birth in 1972. I was lucky, I was in a relatively new wing and got an almost new nightgown. After discharge, clothes and diapers were sterilized and passed to the next woman. One communal shower and toilet on the floor. Water only at certain hours, no one could explain why. Number 14. Gave birth in 1973 and 1975. The first one I remember with horror, very long painful contractions, no pain relief. The orderly in the pre-delivery ward cursed out almost every woman, it seemed so wild to me. Doctors said no one wanted to work there so they had to put up with her. I also remember the midwife just sitting watching me struggle on the table, unable to push properly, saying, "If you want a dead baby, keep pushing like that." Thank God a medical student intern used a towel across my belly to press and help the baby out. I also remember shaking from cold on the table, plus an ice-cold hot water bottle on my stomach, to contract the uterus and prevent infection. Many women swore during labor they'd never get pregnant again. Number 15. I gave birth in 1977 in Leningrad, at the Institute of Obstetrics and Gynecology. I was 22. I was terrified on arrival because I'd first gone to another hospital on Kostromskaya Street where they wanted to send me to the infectious ward over some pimples on my face. I refused and took a taxi to the institute. They accepted me. Rudeness, humiliation, changing, shaving, enema. During contractions I screamed, but no one came for so long, that when I came to and saw Nurse Marina comforting me, I was shocked. Next to me a woman screamed for hours, "Do a C-section." It felt like a concentration camp or torture chamber. No food, many women can't eat or feel nauseous anyway. The antenatal clinic told us in advance to bring chocolate, but they took everything, even my slippers and robe with the chocolate in the pocket. No one around to ask for help, so between contractions I went looking for the toilet myself, barefoot on stone floor in a short shirt. A group of doctors in the hallway stared in surprise but didn't help. Toilet window wide open, blizzard outside, below zero. While I was there the cleaning lady kept hurrying me, scolding me for being half naked, waving her mop under my bare feet. When I got back they brought me a robe, but I didn't need it anymore. Later the pain overwhelmed me, I forgot why I was there and just passively suffered, feeling like I was dying. Compared to that, Soviet dental work, nerve removal without anesthesia, feels like a workout. In delivery a doctor physically pressed the baby out of me. When my little one was born I suddenly remembered why I was there, was happy, it's a boy, but they immediately took him away without saying anything about his condition. I didn't even get to hold or touch him. After delivery they wheeled me into a cold empty corridor and left me. I was starving and asked a passerby for food. Someone brought me beet salad. Shaking violently, I ate it lying down. Later they took me to Stitch Tears. Again, open window, snowy trees outside. Lying soaked in sweat in a wet shirt, freezing to death. When doctors finally came, I begged them to cover me with at least a swaddling cloth. They did. The pain seemed minor compared to before. I think I was in severe shock. I barely understood what was happening and was afraid to ask about the baby or myself. Postpartum ward, about 12 women. They changed hygienic diapers once a day so the doctor could assess blood loss. I suffered terribly from feeling dirty and feared infection. The overall sense of horror and uncertainty never left. Even more than 30 years later, my childbirth remains a trauma for me. These days I keep seeing Westerners, people who never lived in the USSR and don't even know anyone who did, posting on social media that the collapse of the Soviet Union was a great tragedy, that the USSR was a model of social justice and prosperity for ordinary people. More and more people believe that this experiment should be repeated. But the real USSR was nothing like a Star Trek movie. These kinds of stories are much closer to what everyday life there was often like. Many people think that money corrupts, and that if you remove money, people will become kinder and more honest. In reality, unfortunately, money is often one of the very few things that actually make some people treat others in a civil, human way. Thank you for listening.